What's going on, y'all? I'm KM Best. I am joined by Lamby Series. Together, we are 8 Cubes, and we are here to talk about the most pressing topics in Marvel Snap, starting with Black Swan, who got a buff from the data mines. She was data mined at a 2-3 and is now a 3-5, and her effect remains the same. This is a 3-5 with pure upside on revealability. Next turn, your one-cost cards cost 0. And I'll be honest with you, as much as people are saying, oh, it's a 3-5, that's power creep. How are they making a 3-5 with upside? I do think that this is power creeping threes, but I also think that threes, more than any other slot in Marvel Snap, desperately need that power creep. Because when a new 4 comes out, it is a card that has to compete with Shang and Enchantress. And when a new 3 comes out, it has to compete with like literally nothing, which means that most 4s are like double the power of 3s. Your average 4 that sees play: Darkhawk, Werewolf by Night, Sentry, Beta Ray Bill, Shang-Chi, Enchantress, represents something along the lines of, anywhere from 12 to 20 points of power, depending on how that works, while your average 3 that sees play is Gladiator, Ghost, Mobius, probably averaging like 6 points of power if we're being generous. So we are talking about like a vast difference between how good 4s are and how good 3s are. I think that people are so used to 4s being ridiculous that they see the power creep on 3s and they're like, oh my god, that's insane. But it's like, no, the 4s are the problem here. The fact that 3s can't compare to them means that I would like 3s to be better. I want those to be better. And so I think this is the right way to approach it. Similar to what they did with Ghost, just be like, we're going to make this just a really good 3. And I think the weird thing about it is, even as a really good 3, high upside, power creep, I'm not sure this card is good. Like, one of the issues it has is one cost cards are, and I know this sounds ridiculous, probably the worst cards in Marvel Snap, just in terms of including them in your deck and all of that stuff. And I'm so taken aback by, like, it's the right way to go with this card, first of all, because it needs to be, if you're going to include a bunch of one-cost cards in your deck, the cards you play to support them have to have reasonable bodies. It's a great call. But it's not big enough, is it? Like, it's not exactly big enough, is it? What are your thoughts on Black Swan, Lamby?
So this card is very interesting. Like when it first released, I was very like on the hype train for this card because like you turn cards into zero cost. Like zero cost always feels really really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the more I think about it, the more I feel like I'm not really sure how this will end up being like super broken. Like I went from like, okay, this is the most busted card ever, until like every week it's like, okay, this is fine. Okay, this is maybe not fantastic. Maybe this is that's why it's a 3-5 now, that kind of thing. So like I I don't know, man. Like, okay, in a perfect world, you can do stuff like maybe you play like Falcon and then Black Swan on turn
Yeah.
5, and then you make your own beast. But then of course, then it's like then you just play beast as well, and then
Yes.
plus, I think the biggest problem is also, to me, the biggest problem is that you need like a critical mass of like one cost cards in your hand. And when will you be having that many one cost cards in your hand that you weren't already playing in the early game, right? Like let's say Thanos stones, like you would play stones to curve out and then like ramp up and then like do your big stuff. And then by the time Black Swan becomes relevant, maybe you have like one cost card in your hand, two one cost cards in your hand. Like it has to be perfect, right? It has to be like, oh, lockjaw on the board as well, so your stone is free and it makes some sense. And honestly, half the time your stones are like half gone by like the middle of the game. So and then the other three stones or whatever have to be in your hand. If not, it's a wasted 3-5 of sorts. And like you said, right, 3-5 is like the bare like minimum standard at this point
Yeah.
in time. So if you're playing a 3-5 to play one zero cost card for free in the late game, not fantastic.
I think there's like 3 decks that people think this goes in, and I'm gonna address them all one, two, three, right?
Bounce
Bounce,
Thanos.
Thanos, Zoo. All right, those are the decks
Oh.
that people are gonna think this card goes in, right? And in Bounce, we already play Falcon as bad beast, but because we are a deck that is meant to be recycling these ones, it is much more important to be able to recycle them than to make it 0. So Black Swan is like Falcon, but it's the worse half of Beast. Falcon is the better half of Beast, and you already run that. So you're asking now to run the worse half of Beast, a card that doesn't work unless you already played Beast and Falcon in your deck about doing this thing. And so it's like, okay, that is not a compelling argument to me, but I mean, it's a 3-5. You can talk me into it. Like, I don't hate it. I definitely don't hate it there. Thanos, I think, is like Unless you're just like running it for free rolls, and I think there is an argument that you run it for free rolls, just like it's a 3-5, screw it, right? Like that's what the 3-5 stat line does for you that the 2-3 doesn't. Where you're just like, yeah, I mean it's got a body, I'm fine with it. But in Thanos, it's like the most important thing in Thanos is getting your stones, not playing them. You are very able to play your stones in most Thanos games. Like you have like 3 whole turns at the beginning of the game to play those stones. And while I do think there are situations that call for a Black Swan type card in Thanos to like ease the curve out, sort of the way Wave is currently doing, so it allows you to go like a turn 4 Wave into 5 plus a stone, like a big guy and a stone in your lockjaw kind of thing. You already do that with Wave. And so like there's this weird thing with Thanos too. Finally, in Zoo is a deck that is predicated around you really only need to play Khazar and Dazzler and Blue Marvel, and you don't need to play all your 1-drops until the final turn of the game because they cost 1. So making them cost 0, you were already doing that. Like you're just gonna like float 3 energy on turn 6 instead of using it on the things that you were actually gonna play. Like I don't truly grasp where she makes sense. However, the fact that she is attached to a 3-5 body is legitimately compelling and makes her more valuable in decks that are playing a bunch of 1s. Because if you're playing a bunch of 1s, you need your non-1 cards to be super duper impactful because your 1s are not going to be. Next up is Supergiant, releasing in the caches where Black Swan is the season pass card. Supergiant is a 4-5 with an on reveal ability that says, on the next turn, all cards played do not reveal until the end of the game. So short list of cards that this super fucks up on the turn 4 play would be Sarah, Leech, Jane Foster, things of that nature. Very impactful cards on turn 5 are going to be afraid of Supergiant. MODOK, for example, like, good lord. But there's also an argument that Supergiant can be used offensively, i.e. setting up your combo. I personally think of it as similar to Shang-Chi and Enchantress, but with a much more limited scope. And so I'm not sure if it's going to be Shang-Chi or Enchantress level or release Shadow King level. I expect it to be somewhere in between. But this is like one of the most interesting cards that's released in a long time. What are your thoughts on it?
This card, honestly, to me, is the most exciting card I've seen in quite a while for a variety of reasons. I rank this card as like my most favorite card in the February release for a few reasons. Firstly, it is it's a card that benefits you playing a deck that like curves out nicely, which is the kind of stuff that I like to do as well because I like to spend my mana, spend my energy, right? This card is a new form of, I don't know what I would say, disruption. It's not like the Shang-Chi and Enchantress kind of disruption whereby you react, right? This one is you proactively do things and you make them unable to play because you can't do Sarah things, you can't do Leech things, you can't do, like you said, MODOK things, right? It's negation in the form of making it not able to happen instead of
Cosmo.
like getting it's Cosmo, but it's like not the card doesn't even show. The card
Yes.
literally doesn't see play. It's there, which is the mind games part as well, because like it doesn't flip. So you kind of know people will play Sarah on 5, but the thing is, because it's potentially shifting into a Supergiant meta, is that card on 5 actually still a Sarah? Is it still a MODOK? Is it still a Leech? And the thing is, with what Supergiant is doing here, like the way I'm saying it is, it's a meta shaper, because if there's a lot of Supergiant in the meta, right, people will be less inclined to play these like setup card 5s, like setup 5 cards. So then if the meta is shifting away from that, what are we moving towards, right? Like if Sarah becomes just naturally less popular because it doesn't work when Supergiant is popular. So do we gravitate away from Sarah? Do we play more like stuff that doesn't matter whether it flips on 5? And at the same time, one more dynamic is that because the cards don't flip on like maybe turn 5, are you able to effectively like determine what they actually play or what you play on turn 5? It's like there's this mind game, and like you need to think about like on turn 6 what they're gonna play. Okay, so turn 5, how much points was on the board? Am I really sure it's that card and that kind of thing? So Supergiant is honestly a very like unique, like it adds a new unique dimension to the game, and I think it can define metas, because if it's a popular card, it makes certain cards unplayable, and then the meta will shift as well.
I am really excited for Supergiant, but it's a card that's just like it could be anywhere from completely awesome to doing absolutely nothing.
Oh, I want
And
to add one more thing. It's less scary to play against than Quake, still,
yes, but
regardless.
that's like every card in the game except maybe Eliath is less scary to play against than Quake. Like
No,
it's like
I'd
it's like
rather
no
play
no
against Alioth than Quake. Oh my
Eliath,
god.
Hela, Quake. Like,
Quake,
that's the
Quake is so
list.
annoying. It's too cheap and too scary. Alright, but carry on.
Next up, Destroy is a deck that I think a lot of people are talking about. They were thinking, oh, well, Destroy is going to get a nerf in this OTA because of some comments that Glenn Jones made about it being a very good deck. I'm guessing, obviously I have no idea, that the data sort of evened out on their end. Like, it was a good deck, and then people started playing a lot of Sarah, and suddenly that ends up being a bad matchup. So they look at the Hulkbuster change, i.e. chopping the top off the deck, similar to the Rock Slide change in Darkhawk. And of course, the Ghost change, making Sarah kind of free roll that matchup. Like, that's a big, big deal. Like, Ghost being able to just make your Killmonger automatically blow up the Deadpool on the final turn of the game is like, that's pretty gross. Like, that's a really big deal for the Sarah decks right now. And I think that because of those two things, Destroy, despite people arguing that the Hulkbuster thing was a buff, it's worse. And I don't think it's like, necessarily a top tier deck right now. And I think that right now Destroy's in a great spot and they should not nerf it again. What are your thoughts?
So my hot take, actually it's not even really a hot take. It's like if you think about it, right, you will
Mm.
probably agree with me, is that the only way to really nerf destroy, like actually like get rid of like the destroy problem is you actually nerf locations. It's kind of crazy because like the only time I actually find destroy a problem is when the wrong location flips, the cloning
Okay,
beds, the
hold on.
Sinister
I'm
Londons
going to
and
call
stuff
you
like
out
that.
here. I'm going to call you out here because
Okay,
your
okay.
favorite deck is Thanos, right? Like that is your
Yes.
shit. Thanos has
Yes.
way more favorable locations than Destroy. Thanos has significantly more favorable locations and inbuilt location control.
Okay, so this one I agree. Wait, no, Thanos works with a lot of random locations, correct? Like the stones and stuff, one cost cards, flexibility, blah blah
Yep.
blah. But in terms of upward scaling, like
Sure.
there's no way Thanos's upward scaling is crazier than like Bar Sinister, like
No.
Venom, or like Cloning Vex Venom, So
Yes, Destroy has like big spikes, but like Thanos probably more than any other deck is just like, I like that. I like that location. I'm a big fan of that. Like it happens more often for Thanos. And I just feel like
true, it's true.
people love talking about like, oh, the Destroy power spikes, the location disparity. And it's like, all right, look. Right now, I think there are two decks that reasonably snap in the early game without worrying about what your opponent is doing. Those are
Yeah, it's Destroy and
Thanos
Thanos.
decks and Destroy decks, and sometimes Black Knight or Hela decks, but more Hela than Black Knight because they're doing something that's much stupider. Uh, that's good for the game. It is good for the game that there are decks who can exploit information asymmetry in order to snap early. That changes the texture of the game. It makes everything not be like a turn 3, turn 4 snap, right? Like having decks like that is good. And decks like that will overwhelmingly be decks wherein that information asymmetry includes locations a lot of the time. And I think that like that people talk about it like it's a pure bad thing. Oh, Destroy gets to snap on locations. That's good. That's cool. Like that's a game mechanic that really
Yeah, it's a
matters.
game mechanic,
It's
exactly.
good. It's good that that happens. And like I'm sick of people just saying it with the implied assumption that that is a bad thing, that is a negative about Destroy. It's not. It's just it is a thing about Destroy. But if you're going to tell me it's a negative, you need to explain why. I feel like, and I don't really. I feel like a lot of people just throw it out there as if it's assumed to be a negative when I think stuff like that really just adds texture to the game Marvel Snap. That's what it's about on some level. Next up, probably the card in Marvel Snap that deserves a nerf the most, but also the card in Marvel Snap that might be the hardest to nerf realistically. That is Zabu. I have made a lot of hay out of the gap between 4s and 3s, and I think it would be dishonest of me not to talk about Zabu's role in it. To my mind, the reason 4s are good is they are designed as lane winners, game winners, right? And they are designed that way because you should not ever realistically be able to play two of them on the final turn of the game. 4 is the big scaler up. You normally in a normal game of Marvel Snap, you can play 2 3s, but you can't play 2 4s. And I think when they were designing the game, they built things along those lines. All right, if they're going to pay like 4 to 3, that has to be a big jump because you can only play one of these on the end of the turns of the game. And I think that that is the thing that Zabu messes up the most, right? Like Sarah messes that up, but that is the thing that Zabu messes up the most, because not only does it let you skip your turn 3, i.e. a bad card, and play a 4-drop, i.e. a good card on turn 3, it also lets you play multiple of these cards that seem as though they were designed to be a little bit gated from, like, these are cards that are designed to win lanes because they're going to be expensive, and they win lanes, and you play multiple of them on the final turn of the game. And so, while I do think there is an issue between 3s and 4s, I think it is impossible to talk about outside of the context of Zabu, who takes that issue and stretches it to absurdity. It is an absurd thing to do, Zabu, right now. And I think that's why I can't claim any special insight into the like original design process of Marvel Snap, but when you look at the results and try to work back from it, that's sort of how I see it, which actually makes the printing of original Zabu even more insane, but like let's not talk about that, I suppose. Where are you on a Zabu nerf? Like, what would actually do anything? Because, like, you could make it a 2-0, but it's like, what? I'd still play that. It would just feel worse, right? Like,
Yeah, so so this is hilarious because sometimes when we do these episodes, right? Like you just open with a line that literally solves the question in my head, which is like for this Zabu nerf, and like when I came into this topic intending to maybe defend like Zabu never needs a nerf, but then you just had to say that like 4 cost cards are designed to be game winners, and I thought about it this way, and I'm just like, yeah, if I can play 2 game winners in one
yeah, it's
game,
bad, right?
I win the game.
Yeah.
So like the fact that what you just said makes so much sense to me. Like, I never thought about it this way. Like the fact that like 4 cost cards are designed to just win the game, and like 3s, 2s, and 1s are designed to like not just win the game because you are supposed to play multiple of those,
Yes.
right? 4s is supposed to be like you play a 4 and then a 5 and then a 6, not 2
Yes.
4s, right?
Yes.
If you think
That's
about
what
it,
it's
it's like
supposed
you
to
can do
be.
3 plus 3, but you're not supposed to do 4 plus 4 because
Yes.
it's impossible if Zabu doesn't exist and you would want to play a 5 or 6 instead of 4 and 4. But now we can do 4 and 4, which is like Hawk and Shank. Hawk is big, Shank kills something. That is game winner plus game winner, right? So
Yes.
I cannot defend the Zabu nerf anymore because I think, to be honest, it's very possible that because we are able to play 2 game winners with a Zabu, it might actually need some tuning down. But like you said, 2-0, I'll
You
still
still
play
play
it because
it, so like, what do you
I can
do?
still Shang you and Hawk you. I can still Ench you and Shang you, which is game winner plus game winner, which is such a sick like analogy. I think it makes so much sense. Yeah.
It kills me because it's like, what would you have to cost that at? Like, what would it be? Would it have to like make it a 3-2? Would you still play it if it was a 3-2 to let you do that? Because that takes away like at least half of the power of Zabu, which is you now have to play like a dog shit 3-drop instead of an Iron Lad on 3. Like, you get.
I mean, they'd have to rework so many things to actually like set that up. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we obviously cannot revert back to 3-2 and -2 cost,
No,
right?
just
Impossible.
like 3-2 same
Yeah.
text as now.
I think it's a lot worse.
Okay, what
it's
about
I think it's too much worse.
3-4 same text as now?
No, the problem is you don't get to play 2 game winners. You don't get to play game winner on 3, game winner on 4, and then 5 and 6. Or
So
like,
you only get the
that's
double 1
biggest
on
difference.
6.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that'll make it like significantly too much worse.
Okay. Just something I've been kicking around because like I don't know how to solve this guy. I have no idea.
It's like not over the top, but like leaving it the way it is also shows some like problems, right?
Yeah. I think Zabu exacerbates the gap between 3 and 4 to a significant
So much.
Let's talk about Beta Ray Bill and like the Beta Ray Thor Jane package that people are just kind of putting in everything, because I think this is a fascinating development where Beta Ray Thor Jane, all right, it's cool and very close to being very good in a lot of decks, right? Right now, the issue it has is it's just like 5% worse than what those decks were already doing. Like, people are playing, you know, Sarah, but instead of Sarah and Gladiator, we play Thor and Jane, and we replace something in the middle with Beta Ray Bill, and it's like, okay, I get it. Like, that's cool. It's like 5% worse, probably. And then there's like, you know, okay, we're gonna do Bounce, but like we're gonna do Thor and Beta Ray Bill and Jane instead of like, you know, Falcon and the extra 1-drop and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, again, cool, but like 5% worse. And I think on the one hand, it's cool that there's this new package out there that just kind of goes in everything. But on the other hand, if those cards that are currently better than that package in this context get changed, or if the context change, changes, suddenly I feel like that package could actually be like the best thing in a lot of decks, right? Like I can see a world where the Thor stuff is like the mid-range core. I can see that. It's not there now. And I don't know what it would take for it to get there, but I can see a world where that happens. And I think that's pretty cool. Right now it's like, slightly worse than the things people are already doing, but it's good that there is a new option, I think. It is commendable that it's only slightly worse, in my opinion.
Honestly, okay, so this beta ray build package thing is very interesting to me in the sense that like I've seen it, like you said, thrown into everything.
Yeah.
I've seen it thrown into Zabu, Dark Hawk, I've seen it thrown into Sarah, then there's the Lockjaw one, we'll talk about that a bit later. But so I wanna address one thing first, which what I realized is right, like if your deck is a curve deck, which is like Zabu Dark Hawk, it's like a curve deck, right? Actually playing this package in your deck makes your deck a lot worse if you don't specifically play Jane on 5, which is crazy
Yes.
because you want to play Sarah on 5. If you don't play Jane on 5, right, I played so many games recently, by the way, but like I played so many games whereby your opponent has like 4 cards in hand and they cannot finish spending their energy. Why? Because it's like sometimes it's a 0 cost and then there's a 2 cost and then it's like your natural draw to draw the hammer is bad. Like
Yes.
it's actually bad. If you have to use your natural draw to top deck the hammer when you need to like fill the curve, it's really bad. Like that's the problem, right? Like the deck only is good if you can play Jane on 5, but you want to play Sarah on 5, which drives me back to the point where I realized that I was a bit wrong, which is the Lockjaw version of this deck of Beta Ray Build is probably still the best like iteration of it, because why? Drawing Jane, well, comes naturally, but the thing is not just that. Drawing your zeros makes sense because with Lockjaw, your zeros become 6s, 5s, becomes the Jane itself, right? You have so many ways to tutor out bigger stuff just by drawing the zeros, even if you draw the zeros. And of course, not to mention that the one like new combo, which I mentioned a bit in the previous video, that playing Jubilee on 4 was always better than Beta Ray. But now actually playing Beta Ray on 4 is actually like potentially better because the upside is you get to go like Stormbreaker plus Odin, which is like a 16 power spike on turn 6, along with the existing stats on the board already. So it's like you can go super tall suddenly out of nowhere, which is an avenue for the deck that it didn't really have, outside of literally playing a Hulk or something in the past. So it's kind of good. Like honestly, I think the deck is like tier 1.5. Simply because like it's the best way to like scale with Beta Ray build and like not compromise your draws as badly. So yeah, just concluding this topic for me, I feel like Beta Ray build shouldn't be dumped in every random deck because outside of literally playing Jane on 5, it makes your deck like quite a lot worse a lot of the time.
Yeah, but like, boy, when you play that Jane on 5, is it sick?
Yeah, if it happens, it's insane, but like you're compromising a lot if it doesn't. And like certain decks just want to play Sarah instead.
Lamby indicated to me that he thinks the new 3/5 Corvus Glaive is actually good. This is a card that says discard 2 cards and gain 1 energy. Effectively, he is Electro, but instead of restricting you with an ongoing ability, he restricts you with his on reveal, which is, discard 2 cards. I don't get this guy.
Okay.
I when I look at this guy, I'm like, well, the only deck I can think of that actually wants both of those things to happen is like Hela some of the time. And so my instinct then is like, okay, can I play him in like a mid-range deck? What I want to do is like, okay, can I, like that X23 Dakin deck where it's like there's like discard advantages and things like that. Because like in an actual discard deck, that extra energy does absolutely nothing. When you look at like what X23 did for Destroy, what it allowed you to do is play Null Deadpool on the final turn of the game. That's a big deal. Normal discard has no breakpoints like that. And I can't figure out how to build a mid-range deck that doesn't cry every time it discards the wrong things. Because like, oh, well, I'm going to play my mid-range deck with Shang-Chi and Enchantress. I hope my Corvus Glaive doesn't discard my Shang-Chi and Enchantress. So like, outside of Hela, what are you seeing here?
Okay, so here's the pitch that I will say publicly for the first time on video, and if it doesn't age well, it doesn't age well. If it ages well, oh my god, I'll be so happy. Okay. So here's the pitch with Corvus Glaive. Corvus Glaive is a 3/5 that, like you said, discard 2 cards, gain 1 max energy. So Electro, that's a 3/5 with no like 1 card a turn downside, but you lose 2 cards from hand, correct? Mm-hmm. So the pitch is basically this. If you're playing Ramp and you don't get wave on 3 and you don't get electro on 3, you die. So personally, I would be very willing to discard any amount of cards, not any amount. I would be very willing to discard 2 cards to play second electro. This is second electro, and if your deck is basically a lot of cards that are unplayable in the early game anyway, you don't really mind discarding some of these because most of your draws or whatever's left in your hand will be playable after that. Basically, you have a very high chance of playing a turn 4 Sandman with 2 Electros and a Wave in your deck. Obviously, there's a chance you discard it, but that's why you supplement it with playing more 5s. You play Visions, you play like either Dinos, and then you obviously play the Sandman. So my point is very simple. If a ramp deck doesn't get to play Electro on turn 3, you die. So Corvus is just the second Electro in your deck that, of course, yes, if you discard the wrong things, you die anyway. But it's the way I play the game, right? Like Gladiator, right. You play a 3, and then if it brings out something too big, you get snapped, you die. Same thing as Corvus. If you discard the actual Sandman or you discard like the 5 that you wanted to play, okay, maybe you die. But the thing is, you are on 5 energy on turn 4, and I think that is super, super, super important. So to me, Corvus is basically second Electro in a 12-card deck. That's the pitch. And I think it will make ramp better, but obviously it's still 2 weeks away. We'll see.
Well, my issue is that it's not just second Electro. It's third Electro, right? Like, going from that, I don't know. It's like, I ran a couple hypergeometric calculations while you were talking about that. With 12 cards in the deck, assuming your sample size, let's say like you want it by turn 3, right? So you're gonna draw 6 cards, right? The chance to draw one of those 3 cards is 90% with 3 successes in the population. So Wave,
super
Electro,
amazing,
right?
Isn't it?
But the chances with 2 is like 77.3.
Dude, it's
so
a
like,
lot.
It's only
of
gaining
difference.
you 13%.
It's
but
not
like,
only.
No, but like to be clear, going from 1 to 2, that goes from 50 to 77. Going from 2 to 3 goes from 77 to 90. And while I understand that can be and probably is a big jump, it's also you're using another slot in the deck on this, right? And so it's like, I honestly don't know. Because like you talk about how if you don't draw them, you're dead, right? At what point is it better to just be like, well, look, I'm going to draw it 77% of the time. And when I do draw it, I win. As opposed to, I'm going to draw it 90% of the time. But, some of the time my hand is just going to be like this crap. And it's going to be like all the ramp cards and like Nebula Jeff. And I'm just going to lose.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
Like going from 2 to 3 is so much worse than going from 1 to 2.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Your other 2 are way better than he is, and that's sort of my issue.
Yeah, I mean, but like if you think about it, right? If like it's 9 out of 10 times, so it's like every you will draw it. It will happen 9 out of 10 games that you will get the ramp on 3.
Yeah.
So you just make your deck such that you don't need Nebula and Jeff, or maybe you just don't need Nebula. Your deck is just big cards because 9 out of 10 games you will be able to play a 5 on 4. Like, right? Your deck is just all big. It's all 5s and 6s and then the 3. Because 9 out of 10 times you will play a 5 on 4 and a 6 on 5.
So I guess my worry is that deck just isn't competitive.
You know I don't know. We'll have to see.
I guess my worry with that is like if I'm doing nothing for 2 turns and then playing like a ramp card and then it better
be
good,
right? It better be good,
it's
right?
like, all right, I mean, like we have Thanos out here that's doing that a lot better and a lot more effectively in the early game, and it's like I don't know if that plays, but I do buy that that's the place to try Corvus. I totally buy that, but it's just like the going from 2 to 3 is not nearly as worth it as going from 1 to 2. The other 2 are better. And I worry about the construction of the deck around it. So that's pretty much where I'm at with that. Let's talk about Hela. I hate this. I hate this deck. Did you know it's like the most played deck post Infinite since the patch? Isn't that just like...
Yeah, so...
Isn't that just like... It's just so bad? Like, isn't that just... I don't know. That makes me sad. It makes me sad that like everyone is just good. Like everything is just so teched out that it's like, well, okay, what's the answer to your 100% deterministic tech deck? Is I'm going to the casino. Suck it. And like I just like I don't like this. I don't like that state of affairs. I don't like either of those polls. You know what I mean? The fact that Sarah is just like, Sarah, 3 cards that do points, 8 tech cards, and then it's like Hela, which is just pulling the slot machine thing, and like those are the decks. It's like, okay, can we get back to the middle a little bit, please? Like, I don't like the way this is shaping up. That's sort of where my head is at. I much preferred it when like it was Living Tribunal doing that stuff. That was at least something you could answer, but Hela is just like, well, I don't know. I guess I die. I guess I die or I retreat. Interesting. What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I don't like to play against Hela as much as the next person. In fact, like when I play Infinity Conquest, honestly, a lot of the time, okay, so basically playing against Hela, you need to like figure out when it's the time to just YOLO stay. Because like if the numbers work out in your factor, like if like the spacings on the board and what they can revive like sort of works out in your favor, you kind of have to stay. And in Infinity Conquest, sometimes I stay and then like I just lose because like it just ends up spawning in the wrong places. But I just want to say that like Hela is one of those decks that like you know that it's coming, but like if you can't like if you look at the math, if you look at alright, there's actually only like one way. If this infinite spawns exactly at this spot, then I die, then of course you stay. And then if it happens, you're not exactly wrong. But I think identifying these scenarios is very important. The thing is, if you identify these scenarios and you still lose because of the casino, some people like just get a bit too tilted, right?
That's
Because
me.
like
I'm some people.
it's like sometimes you just know you should stay,
Yeah, it's
but
like,
then when you
oh,
stay, you die.
I'm
But you know,
75% here. I'm 60. Usually it's like I'm 66% here or something like that.
it's
And
good
then,
enough actually.
yeah, like you,
But,
you
yeah.
you play so that like, you're bigger than the one thing it spawns on every lane, and the only way you lose is like
Mm-hmm.
it splits it in a specific way or something like that. It's just like, well, I
I mean, it's
guess
card
I
games, right? It's
die.
card games. I'm even
Yeah.
down to the point whereby, like, if it's like if 2 things spawn left or 2 things spawn right,
Yes.
I win or lose. I would still like probably take it now. It's like 50-50 nowadays because, like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not one of the best chances you get, right? It's better than like if they spawn 5 things and you always die. Those you always leave. But so
The thing
yeah, I
is,
think most of the more consistent Hela decks right now don't actually go crazy with the Modok, right? They discard like
right.
about 3 things in one game, so
Yeah.
it's actually like contestable. Just that they are really big
Yes.
things, so you need to think about it.
Yeah, like there's like this thing that happens where it's like you'll stay on a 50-50 and you'll lose the 50-50, and the Hell player will be like, nice.
New
And it's
emotes,
like
yeah.
it's
They
like,
use the She-Hulk flex on you.
come on, man, I was doing the right thing here, and you're just like, what's up, dude? I'm the casino.
Welcome to the casino, bish.
Let's talk about my favorite card from the new season, and he's my favorite card because he's the biggest, dumbest idiot in the entire game. Just like me, that's Cull Obsidian. He is a 4/10 with the clause that you can only play him where you have previously played a 1-drop, but you can play the 1-drop and him in the same lane on the same turn. So, big deal. Power crept crossbones. Let's go. I do think this is also indicative of like just how far off base a lot of those early core set, I guess you'd say, 4-drops were. Like when you look at like the thing being a 4/6, and then like a bunch of things having like upside 4/8, like Drax, Crossbones is like a restricted 4/8. And you look at like White Queen, which is like supposedly the vanilla with a stat, like it's the vanilla stat with like a good ability, and it's totally unplayable. And it really illustrates the issue with 4s, which is that like in order to be a good 4, you need to be pushing double-digit impact. Like most 4s that people actually play are pushing double-digit impact at this point. And that is like where Cull Obsidian is at. And he does make a lot of those cards look ridiculous, but it's cool. They already looked ridiculous, right? Like Rescue or something like that. Like, these are cards that looked ridiculous to begin with, and now they look even more ridiculous because this is a 4/10. The choice to go to 4/10 is an interesting one because Cull was data mined as a 4/9. And as a 4/10, yes, he's vulnerable to Shang-Chi, but he has synergy with Scar. And getting synergy with Scar at 4 is, I think, actually a really big deal. Like,
Yeah.
that cost and synergy with Scar means you go Cull Obsidian into Scar plus 1-drop, cough, cough, Infinity Stone. Like, that's real. In addition, Proxima Midnight into, like, 0-cost 1-drop Cull Obsidian, also a thing. Like, this is genuinely, I think, pretty interesting here. And I feel like between these buffs, Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight going to 4/7, although the only card that wasn't touched was Supergiant, actually. Black Swan to 3/5, things of that, and Cull Obsidian to 4/10. This season went from to there are some really exciting things here. And it's crazy how just 1 point of power can do that.
Yeah, I rated I rated this card a bit lower when I was like talking to like Pulse Glazer earlier on this week because like it felt like my pitch was my thinking was that alright, I don't think I want to play this card outside of like in Tempo Thanos, whatever Tempo Thanos is. But then I realized with the way Thanos Lockjaw is right now and how I've been playing the deck, it's actually already Tempo Thanos. So like if you think about it, right, it's already Tempo Thanos. Like you can go like wave on 3 into blob on 5, and then like your scars discounted. You just keep playing like cards on curve and stuff like that. It's already what Thanos is doing. And now, right, I just realized this disgusting interaction of Time Stone on 4 into Cull into Scar on. You get what I mean? You Time Stone on 2,
No, I
Cull
think
Obsidian on 3, Scar on 4. Like,
yes, that one's
that's
pretty
disgusting,
gross,
dude.
right?
That's
Like,
just
yeah, you're
like,
just like
oh
you're
my
just dumping
God.
giant stats. Or like this guy being 10, like people are gonna be like, oh, that's a nerf, right? He's Shang-Chi-able now. But it's like, dude, you Shang-Chi'd my 4 drop.
Yeah, the pace,
What?
the pace of your 4/10s coming
Yeah.
out is too crazy for Shang, right? Time Stone,
Yes.
Cull, and then you play Scar, then you Dino, then you blob. How many Shanks do you need? It's not enough.
Yeah, you're like people are talking like you'll need that full like you have Sarah, Zabu, Shang-Chi, Absorbing Man, the Grandmaster type beat.
You need to
like,
Shang endpoints. It's quite crazy.
You need to Shang-Chi every lane now. Like this has to happen if you want to beat it.
Yeah, like the pace of what Thanos can do with Cull just like ramps up one like Scar already made Thanos like a bit more like more tempo, right? Because you can do like multiple big things and like stones with Lockjaw and stuff. But then this one just like enables the Scar even one more time more easily, which is I think a huge deal.
It's kind of exactly what Thanos is looking for in a 4-drop because like Thanos doesn't want to play 4-drops, right? And a lot of that is because 4-drops aren't that big. Like that's a big reason why. If your 4-drop is gigantic, then yeah, you're totally down to play a 4-drop. But most 4-drops aren't gigantic. This guy's huge. He's enormous, and he's kind of exactly what you're looking for. Big enough to discount the Scar. Big, thick boy. Big fan of my boy here. I like really do think that like these stat changes. Honestly, I don't know if any of these cards are like in nerf range, but they are quite strong. And I am pretty happy that this season went from to these are all interesting cards now. I really think that.
Yeah, this is the season that I have the most like before I've played any of the cards. I have decks for the cards already. So you guys watching this video, you guys should be excited because I wouldn't be physically around to stream it very often. You guys didn't know already. I'm gonna be away for the last 2 weeks of February, but my Twitter will be bussin', going crazy with random deck lists
Lammy's
that
gonna
you
be
guys should
tweeting
try.
deck lists from like the
Bam!
jungle barracks that he's located.
Yeah. I'll be in some unknown place. All right, let's not talk about it. It's some unknown place, but my deck list will
he'll
be
be in
coming
like
out.
a black site tweeting deck lists.
I'll be in a black site.
He'll be operating in like what the Singaporean CIA black site.
Yeah. Maybe. Who knows?
Oh my god.
But yeah.
It'll just be like tweeting Thanos deck lists with location turned on.
Thanos from Area 51.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for making it through that episode. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I've been Cam Best. He's been Lamby Series. I'm not even going to pretend to try to point the right direction. I know I'm going to mess it up. Lamby, take us out.
Thank you guys for being here for this one. I was very happy filming this episode. It's really fun to do. If you like what you just saw, do like, comment, subscribe to KM Best channel, and we will see you in the next one real soon. Bye bye.